Home for many people is something tangible. Home for us is a dream. Home for you is reality. Home for me is a wish. Home for you is existence, and home for me is a struggle. Inside me, I know Western Sahara is my home. I've never seen it, but I know it exists. Asria Mohamed, 32, Western Sahara. Refugees aren't a far-off concept that we have never heard of, yet we are still so distant from them and their struggles. We read news headlines of refugee crises, becoming gradually desensitized to the refugees' lives and hardships. Inevitably, we grasp the idea of refugees through such hyperbole. In so doing, we tend to blur the fact that real people, ordinary and otherwise, lived through it and were harrowed by these hyperboles. So we ask you to look past the numbers, which only hold as much power as the stories behind them allow. Behind each number is a story, and so one house constructed means more than that. It means one family, their struggles and hopes, and their story brought to life by a chorus of voices from the far Western Saharan desert. We will come to know the real major characters, the families living in these refugee camps that give all these abstract dates, facts, and history its real meaning. It has been 45 years since the Western Sahara's indigenous people, the Sahrawis, were displaced from their homeland by Morocco's invasion. As of today, 160,000 Sahrawi people live in refugee camps deep in the Sahara Desert in Algeria.
Primeramente el gobierno marroquí invadió a mi patria, empezó a matar, entre ellos mi padre.
وقفت قلت له عيني طاحت رد لي البرة مباشرة.
The Western Sahara region has been occupied by Morocco since 1976, after Spain relinquished its colonial claim over the territory. With the taste of freedom that lasted only a few months still lingering, this former Spanish colony was then annexed by Morocco. The Sahrawi people, who fought Spanish colonial oppression, were now forced to fight Moroccan occupation. Under the leadership of the Polisario Front, the Sahrawi people resisted until 1991 when the United Nations brokered a truce, a glimmer of false promise that turned out to be a mere mirage not long after. A 16-year-long insurgency led by the indigenous Sahrawis Polisario Front ended with a UN-brokered truce in 1991. A UN-supervised referendum on independence of Western Sahara was promised, but it was aborted by Morocco. In March, Morocco expelled UN staffers from Western Sahara after the UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon referred to Morocco's rule over the region as an occupation during a visit to refugee camps in Tindouf. In June 1991, when it deployed, the UN mission for the referendum in Western Sahara, or MINURSO, was one of the most ambitious UN peacekeeping operations ever attempted. More than a year after its deployment, and long after it was to have done its job and gone home, MINURSO was only 10% deployed, awaiting orders to go ahead that seemed ever more remote with each passing month. This UN peacekeeping mission that was to organize the referendum has remained in the territory ever since, while Morocco built a 2,700-kilometer-long sand wall with landmines.
This is really a failure, in the sense that since 1991, United Nations spent more than $1 billion. And we have not made a move of an inch to the goal, which is the referendum. In the same time, there are no protection of civilians. There are violation of human rights. There are plundering of the mineral resources of the territory. The Sahrawis are asking just for the right to determine their future, to vote. Why this right is valid for Timor, for Kosovo, for South Sudan, for Namibia, and elsewhere, and Western Sahara is still an exception.
The Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, or SADR, headed by the Polisario Front, has been recognized by the African Union as a legitimate government in exile. As of March 2020, the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic has been recognized by 84 UN member states. However, 44 have since either frozen or withdrawn recognition. For decades, Morocco's attempts to delegitimize SADR and Polisario were futile until it eventually caved and applied to rejoin the African Union without precondition.
We are peaceful people who have waited 26 years for a peaceful resolution of the conflict. We have worked in good faith with the United Nations to help it complete its mandate in the territories. At the same time, we're preparing for all options. But we always prefer and always tend to opt for a peaceful solution.
To explain Morocco's side, Morocco claims Western Sahara on the grounds that a few Sahrawi tribes once pledged allegiance to the Sultan of Morocco. Although the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, does recognize legal ties between Morocco and some Sahrawi tribes, they concluded that there was no tie of territorial sovereignty between Western Sahara and Morocco, and therefore Western Sahara has the right to self-determination. AU member states argued that Morocco should not be readmitted unless it accepts the 1960 UN Declaration on the granting of independence to colonial countries and peoples, which states that all peoples have the right to self-determination, and by virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status. All this was thrust aside and Morocco was readmitted to the AU when 39 out of the 54 African member states voted for Morocco. They tacitly endorsed the long-standing occupation of Western Sahara, all the while Morocco was still refusing to comply with the UN's original requests. Western Sahara thus remains the continent's last colonial outpost, occupied by another African state.
This is Abdelaziz speaking in 2009 in Tindouf, Algeria, where he lived for over 40 years.
We are sure, as we are sure that God exists, that the Saharan people's objective is independence, and that is a right we must address today, tomorrow, next year, in our time, in our children's time. It doesn't matter when. The important thing is to achieve national independence. The conditions we are living in, the weakness in policy and failures of the Moroccan kingdom, the importance of the Saharan case in the world today, and the focus of Saharan people on independence are indicators that victory is imminent. Independence is imminent.
The United States has traditionally been a major supporter of Morocco, France even more so. And collectively, they have prevented the United Nations from forcing Morocco to live up to its responsibilities, initially to withdraw and allow the people the right of self-determination, as was in the initial United Nations resolutions back in the 1970s. Our ambassador at the time, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, bragged in his autobiography at the way the United States was able to prevent these resolutions from actually being enforced. And more recently, the failure of the United States and France to allow the United Nations to go ahead with the referendum that would give the people of Western Sahara the opportunity to choose incorporation into Morocco or independence, as they have as a right, as a recognized non-self-governing territory, that is, an incomplete decolonization.
This occupation made some rich, ruined others, and changed forever the lives of all who have lived through it and who are living through it.
لكن للأسف 38 سنة أو 40 نحن على هذه الويلات. إن كان فعلا العالم الأولوية هي المصداقية لحقوق الإنسان، فإن الصحراء الغربية تعطي جملة وتفصيلا عن انتهاكات حقوق الإنسان في الصحراء الغربية.
Lo cogen, lo amarran y lo llevan en un helicóptero y lo lanzan hacia la tierra. Más las fosas comunes lo entierran vivos.
The Saad family crossed the border at the start of the conflict. They are part of a community of over 200,000 Sahrawis who continue to live in exile.
كنا فهم بحيوان بأولاد وبمنات وفرجان وكذا كامل وجاءت نقوم من المغرب حمال الحال رحنا عند ناس ما هم زينين فينا وسمعنا أخبارهم كاملة عنهم يذبحون.
المدافع في الليل بنوا عليهم مدافع خبطونا بهم، طايرة الناس من ذاك البلد أسقع طلقة على كرعيها عندي شغال الكرع. منين خبطت الناس في الليل تفرزت، قامت متفرزة قالت التركب اللي مات فهم واللي مشى حي. بعد من ذيك التفرزة فاخذت علي 4 تركب ذيك الليلة ما تيتريت.
This nightmare, without a doubt, is a reality for them. And while the activists bleed, sweat, and risk everything to fight for a drop of freedom, the rest of the Sahrawi people can only wait for change from idly sitting politicians holding on to a thread of hope that is threatening to snap off at any minute.